Welcome to the Story Apothecary, a podcast filled with healing and medicinal stories. My name is Nana Tomova, and I'm a traditional storyteller and a pharmacist, and stories are medicines which I dispense. In this podcast, you'll find my prescriptions of stories for the body, mind, heart, soul, and for the earth. So I invite you to join me as we enter the healing world of stories together. Welcome to the month of October. Hasn't time gone quickly? Leaves and mushrooms and trees and definitely autumn. I hope you've had a good month, a good beginning to less light, a good beginning to the start of hibernation, the start of slowing down. So lovely to be here with you and for you to join me. And for this month, I have something special for you. I have a story about Baba Yaga. And if you didn't know who Baba Yaga is, I have lots of information for her. A crone from Eastern Europe, the one I grew up with. An old crone goddess that lives in the land of the living dead, in her little hut, which stands on chicken legs. Wise old woman, healer, helper, sometimes, a lot of the time perhaps, but help does not look obvious always. She has one skeleton leg, or the bony egg. She has dangling breasts that she dumps on the stove or hangs over a pole or hooks, and a long sharp nose that knocks against the ceiling. And she flies around in a mortar, rowing herself through the air with a pestle, wiping her traces away with a broom. Some beliefs is that she was the great goddess, the Earth Mother herself. Others believe that she was the Slavic goddess of death. A third that she was the mistress of all the birds, hence the hut on chicken's legs and the long nose like a beak. A fourth theory is that she was a rival of the goddess Mokosh, and as she evolved over time into the goddess of birds and snakes. She appears as a spinner and a weaver, things that always symbolize human destiny. She's also a warrior who sleeps with a sword over her head and fights against knights. In some tales, she can turn people into stone. In others, she has powers to command the force of nature, winds and tempest and thunder, Maybe she controls the weather. She has been slandered terribly throughout the years, being cruel, ugly, misshapen, a hag with a crooked nose. We can see through those descriptions of ugly how actually powerful she is, powerful and wise due to her years. She is the death goddess, but of course death leads to new life and rebirth. It is thought that her womb, which is symbolised by the oven or the cave, which is always in the tales, comes rebirth. And then when life became linear and death was feared, the Baba Yaga was turned into a terrifying crone. Her hut, which is always spinning in tails, goes facing towards the forest, towards death. And it is the hero and heroine which knows the magic words, which can make it turn around. Little hut, turn around and face me. Tells the hut to turn with its back towards the forest, back towards death, and its front towards the person, its door towards life. Baba Yaga's house stands on the outskirts of human civilization, as she is the guardian of the passage between the worlds. And so, now you know a little more about Baba Yaga. I think it's time to tell you a story. One of the most loved stories of Baba Yaga. One of the most famous ones, and one of the most beautiful ones. But not the only one. There are dozens and dozens. The story of Baba Yaga and Vasilisa. A long, long time ago, in a place far, far away from here, there lived a merchant with his wife. They were happy, content, married for 12 years. She was a great herbalist, a healer, well loved across the whole of the village and beyond, and he a successful merchant. And for 12 years they were married, when their prayers were finally answered. For on the 12th year, after 9 full moons, in the waters of her mother's oceans, a girl was born, a daughter, a gift, and they called her Vasilisa the Beautiful. Her hair dark, like a raven's wing, lips as red as rose hips, and eyes as deep as the old forests of his tale. The girl was but 8 summers old when her mother fell deeply ill. So ill was she, bedbound, bedridden, coughing, a fever. They knew she wasn't going to make it. They knew it wouldn't be long. As the woman, the wife, Vasilisa's mother, was hovering between this world and the next, she called her daughter to her, pulled a doll from under the blanket, and gave it to her. Listen, my dearest Vasilisa, these are my final words, my final wish. Remember them. Remember these words. Carry out my last wish. I'm dying. Along with my blessing, I leave you this doll. Always keep her with you, by your side, and don't show her to anyone. Don't tell a word to anybody. If ever some grief happens to you, give the doll something to eat. Ask her advice. She will eat. Tell you what to do to help in your misfortune. And with this, the mother kissed her daughter and departed from this world to the next. After the death of his wife, the merchant grieved for a while, 40 days and 40 nights as it was appropriate. More time passed, and well, he started to think about getting married again. He didn't know how to cook, how to clean, how to look after the house, when in those days this all fell to the women. And so Vasilisa took the brunt of his work. And all the other neighbours around him would say, well, a daughter like yours, she needs a mother. And so still with love in his heart for the one that had departed, he decided he would find another. He was a good man, he was good looking, successful. There were plenty of potential brides, but the one that pleased him the most was a widow herself, already a certain age, had 2 daughters of her own, almost the same age as his Vasilisa. He thought she must be an experienced wife, an experienced mother, someone to love his daughter. And so they were married. A small wedding. After they were married, the merchant, well, his new wife wasn't the way that he had remembered her. He was disappointed. He didn't gain a mother for Vasilisa. She looked at her sideways with a menacing grin, was not kind, not to her, not the way that she was kind to her own two daughters. Vasilisa was beautiful. She was as beautiful as a wild flower in the forest. And people noticed. Some said that she was the most beautiful girl in the village. And her stepmother and stepsisters envied her beauty and tormented her with all kinds of work, hoping she would get thin from the work, hoping that the sun would burn her skin and she would get wrinkles. The wind would thin it, her hair, her skin, her smile. And so Vasilisa had no kind of a life at all. She bore it all without complaining, and each day she grew more beautiful. While her stepmother and her stepsisters, well, they got skinnier and uglier only from spite, only from their anger, from their ill wishes. What's on the inside comes out on the outside. Vasilisa did all the work. How could she manage it? How could she do everything? Watering the vegetable patch, bringing water from the well, stoking the fire, carrying the wood, cooking, cleaning. How could she do it all and not even complain? Well, a doll, of course. The doll that her mother had given her. Vasilisa herself very often would have nothing left to eat. She would get crumbs and crusts thrown at her, but she would save the best morsel for her doll. In the evening, when everybody had gone to bed, she would shut herself in the storeroom where she lived, where it was cold. She'd get the doll out of the pocket of her dress. She would give her a morsel and say, "Here, Dolly, have a bite to eat and listen to my grief. I live in my father's house, but I know no joy. My evil stepmother is trying to drive me off the face of the earth. Tell me, what should I do? How should I live?" The doll would have a bite to eat, and then comfort and give advice to Vasilisa. And in the morning she would do all kinds of work for Vasilisa. The girl would relax in the shade to pick flowers. Her rows of vegetables were weeded, the cabbage watered, the water carried, the stove heated, the fire stoked. The little doll also showed Vasilisa what herbs to use against sunburn. She had a good life with her doll. The doll cared for her, looked after her, made sure that no harm came to her. A few years passed. Vasilisa grew up and, well, was of an age to marry. In those days, girls didn't get much of a choice. It was the ticket to leave her terrible house. Her father, grief-stricken, had spent more and more time away, travelling for work, going to different corners of the land as a merchant. His heart too heavy to stay and watch his daughter. His new wife behaved terribly towards his daughter. He didn't have the courage to say a word, and so he did the only thing he knew. He left. And so Vasilisa looked for a husband. It was the only way that a young woman could leave childhood home. All the young bachelors in the city, in the villages, in the places around had their eyes on Vasilisa. No one even looked at her stepsisters. Her stepmother grew even more spiteful. I won't let the younger one marry before the older ones do, she would say, and so she would turn all the young men away, and Vasilisa would hear the door go over and over again with the word no, no, no. And each time the door closed, her heart sank a little. After her stepmother saw the suitors out the door, she took out her anger by beating Vasilisa. And so Vasilisa's skin became a tapestry of threads, black and blue. One day, her father, the merchant, told them that he would leave for a very long trip. For business, he would travel to faraway lands that he had never traveled before. He'd be gone for a year, maybe more. The stepmother decided to move to another house. She picked a house in a certain forest. She knew what the forest that was. In the glade of that forest stood another little house, Baba Yaga's hut. She let no one come near. The whispers were that she ate people like they were chickens. And after they moved to this new place, hand-picked, of course, the merchant's wife kept sending Vasilisa into the woods on this errand and that errand, hoping that she would lose her way and maybe get found by Baba Yaga. But Vasilisa always came home safely. The doll whispered, showed her the way, told her which way to go, and didn't let her get close to Baba Yaga's house. Autumn came. The trees became golden and bronze. Carpets formed in the forests. The light decreased. The winds howled. The sun slept longer. The stepmother gave all three girls evening tasks. She made one of them tat lace, the second one knit stockings, and Vasilisa spin, and she set them all to their lessons. She put out every single light in the whole house, leaving only one small candle where the girls were working, and she herself went to bed. All three girls worked, and the candle started to smoke, the wick becoming long and needed a trim. And one of her stepdaughters picked up the tongs to fix the wick, but instead of doing that, she snuffed out the candle as if by accident. But of course, she was following her mother's orders. "What are we to do now?" asked the girls. "There's no flame in the whole house, and we haven't finished our tasks." "Someone has to run and get fire from Baba Yaga's house." "I have a light from my pins," said the one that was tatting lace. "I won't go." "I won't go either," said the one that was knitting a stocking. "I have light from the needles." "You have to go and get the fire," they said to Vasilisa. "You have to go to Baba Yaga's hut." And they pushed Vasilisa out of the room. Vasilisa went into the storeroom. She put the dinner that she had prepared in front of her doll, some crust of bread, stale. "Here, dolly," have a bite to eat and listen to my grief. They're sending me to get fire from Baba Yaga. But she'll eat me. What am I to do, Dolly?" The doll had a bite to eat, and her eyes lit up like two candles. "Don't be afraid, dear Vasilisa. Go where they're sending you, but always keep me by your side. Nothing bad can happen to you at Baba Yaga's if I'm with you." And so Vasilisa got ready. She put her doll in her pocket, set off into the deep, dark forest, her face to the future, her hand on her heart, a doll in her pocket. She walked and she trembled. As she was walking upon the carpet of leaves, suddenly a horseman galloped past her. He himself was white, dressed in white. The horse he rode was white. The harness on the horse was white. As he passed, it began to get light in the woods. As she walked along further, another horseman galloped past. He was red, dressed in red on a red steed. The sun began to rise, and so Vasilisa walked all night and all day, and she didn't reach the clearing where Baba Yaga's house stood until that evening. As she approached that hut on chicken legs, it was more frightening, more terrifying than she had ever thought. The fence around the house was made of human bones. Human skulls with eyes were stuck on it. There were human leg bones in the gate instead of posts, arm bones instead of doors, and a mouth with sharp teeth instead of a lock. Vasilisa felt faint with horror, but stood there as if rooted to the spot. Suddenly, another horseman rode by. He was black, dressed all in black, on a black steed. He rode up to the gate and disappeared as if the earth had swallowed him. Night arrived. But the darkness didn't last long. The eyes of all the skulls in the fence lit up, and the whole clearing became as light as midday. Vasilisa was shaking with fear, but she didn't know where to go, didn't know where to run, and so she stayed where she was. Soon, a dreadful noise came from the forest. The trees began to crack. The dry leaves rustled. Baba Yaga rode out of the forest. She was riding a mortar, driving with a pestle, sweeping her tracks away with a silver birch broom. She rode up to the gate, stopped, sniffed all around her, and shouted with a voice so deep the ground shook. I smell the scent of a human. Before there was no sight, no smell of a person, but now a human stands before me. Tell me, who are you and what do you want? Vasilisa went up to the old woman fearfully, bowed down low. I'm here, grandmother. It's Vasilisa. My stepmother's daughter sent me to get fire from you. I know your stepmother and your stepsisters. All right. Live here for now and work for me, and I'll give you some fire. But if not, I will eat you. And then she turned to the gates and shouted, "Hey, unlock my firm locks, open up my wide gate." The gate opened. Baba Yaga rode in, whistling a tune. Vasilisa followed her. And then everything closed and locked back up. Once she was in the room, Baba Yaga stretched out, taking the most of the space in the hut. "Serve what's in the stove. I want to eat." Vasilisa lit a splinter from the skulls in the fence and began getting food out of the stove and serving it to the Baba Yaga. There was enough food to feed 10 people. She brought kvass and beer and mead and wine. The old woman drank everything up. All that she left for Vasilisa to eat was a little bit of cabbage soup, a crust of bread, a piece of ham. That was more than Vasilisa had known for the last few years. And of course she saved the best for her doll. Baba Yaga began to get ready for bed. "When I go out tomorrow, here's what I want you to do. Clean the yard, sweep the house, make the dinner, get the laundry ready, go into the granary, take a quarter of measure of wheat, and clean the wild peas out of it. And be sure to do everything right. If you don't, I will eat you." And after she gave these orders, Baba Yaga fell asleep. She snored. Vasilisa put the old woman's leftovers in front of the door. And between tears, she whispered, "Here, Dolly, have a bite to eat and listen to my grief. Baba Yaga's given me such hard work. She'll eat me if I don't finish everything. Help me, what do I do?" The doll had a bite to eat. She spoke. "Don't be afraid, Vasilisa. Have some food, and then go to bed, for the morning is wiser than the evening." Vasilisa did. She woke up very early. But Baba Yaga was already up, even before the sunrise. She looked out the window, and the eyes of her skulls were already dimming down low. The white rider passed, and it got completely light. Baba Yaga went into the yard, whistled with her long nose, and the mortar and her pestle and her broom made of silver birch appeared before her. The red horseman rode by and the sun rose. Baba Yaga got in her mortar and rode out of the yard with her pestle, wiping her tracks away with her broom. She went deep into the forest, perhaps to pick mushrooms, like other stories say, perhaps on other business. No one truly knows. Vasilisa was left alone. She looked around the house, marvelled at everything. Such a small hut it was, yet it fitted so much. What should she start first? And as she looked and rubbed her eyes, she saw all the work was already done. The doll was picking up the last bit of grains out the wheat. "All that's left for you to do is make the dinner," said the doll. "Good luck as you cook it, and rest all that you want." Towards evening, Vasilisa set the table and waited for Baba Yaga to come. As it started to get dark, as the black horseman flashed by, the eyes of his skulls began to glow fire. The trees began to crack, the leaves began to rustle, and Baba Yaga came in her mortal and pestle. The door opened, the gates unlocked. Is everything done? Asked Baba Yaga. Be good as to look for yourself, grandmother, said Vasilisa. Baba Yaga looked over everything. She felt with her hands, she smelled. And then she felt disappointed, but there was nothing to be angry about. All right, she said. And then Baba Yaga shouted into the air, my true servants, my heartfelt friends, grind the wheat for me. 3 pairs of gigantic hands appeared, picked up the wheat, took it out of sight. Vasilisa watched in horror, said nothing. Baba Yaga ate. She ate everything, apart from a little crumb of bread. Began to get ready for bed, and once again ordered Vasilisa, tomorrow, do the same things you did today, and plus that. Take the poppy seeds out of the granary and clean the dirt out of them. Grain by grain, someone mixed a lot of the earth into the poppy seeds out of spite. The old woman finished speaking, turned to the wall and Vasilisa started to feed her doll. The doll ate and said again, go to bed, Vasilisa, for the morning is wiser than the evening. And so Vasilisa went to sleep. In the morning, the same thing happened. It was dark, and then the white rider came, and then the red rider came. Baba Yaga went out of the yard with her mortar and her pestle and her white silver birch broom to wipe out her tracks, and she flew across the forest as the leaves rustled and the branches cracked until she disappeared out of sight. The doll had done everything. In the evening she returned. Is everything done? She asked. Look for yourself, grandmother, said Vasilisa. Baba Yaga looked, displeased, angry, annoyed, but true to her word. She clapped her hands. My true servants, my heartfelt friends, press the oil out of the poppy seeds for me. And again 3 pairs of hands appeared, grabbed the poppy seed, took it away. They began to eat dinner. Baba Yaga, a hearty appetite, ate everything in her sight in a few bites. Vasilisa, quietly, ate slowly, looking down, saying nothing. Why don't you say anything? Asked Baba Yaga. You stand here as if your mouth doesn't work. I didn't dare, said Vasilisa. But if you'll permit me, I'd like to ask you about a few things. Go ahead. Ask. Only know that not every question leads to good. If you know too much, you'll soon get old. I want to ask you, grandmother, about what I saw. When I was on my way here, there was a horseman on a white horse, all white, wearing white clothes. Who is he, Granny? That's my clear day, answered Baba Yaga. And then another horseman passed me. He was on a red horse, dressed in red clothes. Who was that? That's my red son, answered Baba Yaga. And what does the black horseman mean, grandmother, the one who passed me at your very gate? That's my black knight. They are all my faithful servants. Why don't you ask me more? Said Baba Yaga. Vasilisa remembered the giant 3 pairs of hands, but decided to say nothing. That will do. As you said yourself, grandmother, if I learn too much, I'll get old. It's good you ask me only what you saw outside the yard, and not what's inside the yard. I don't want to talk about private business from inside the house, she said. And I eat the ones that are too curious. Now I want to ask you, how do you manage to finish all the work that I order you to do? Vasilisa thought very carefully about what to say. My mother's blessing, she answered. And so that's that, is it? You get away from here, blessed daughter. I don't need anyone with a blessing. And so she pushed Vasilisa out of the room, pushed her through the gate, dragged her outside the fence. Here, she said, as she took a skull with glowing eyes out of the fence, stuck it on a stake, gave it to her. Here's the fire that you came searching for. Take it and leave. Vasilisa set off towards her house, carrying her skull, which stopped giving light as soon as the morning came. And then, towards the evening of the second day, she made it back in her own home. She came towards the gate and thought, this is silly. I've been gone for such a long time, surely they would have had fire from everywhere, and so she went to throw away the skull, but the skull spoke. Don't throw me away, Vasilisa. Take me to your stepmother. She glanced at her stepmother's house, saw no light, and so I decided to take the skull to her home. As she opened the door, she was greeted warmly. They spoke to her and smiled and even hugged her for the very first time in her life. They told her that ever since that night that she had left, there'd been no flame in the house. They couldn't strike one themselves, and no matter what fire they brought from the neighbours, as soon as it went through the front door, it went out. Perhaps your fire would last, they said. They brought the skull into the main room, and the eyes inside the skull gave the stepmother and the stepdaughter such a look from the skull that it just burned them. All night they ran, and all night the eyes of a skull followed them around the room. No matter where they ran, the eyes were there, burning them. Towards the morning, all that was left of them were ashes. Only Vasilisa was left untouched. In the morning, Vasilisa buried the skull in the earth, locked the house, and there are many adventures of Vasilisa. And as for Baba Yaga, well, she made her way into another story, as she does, of course. One thing is certain about Vasilisa. That doll she kept into her pocket, close to her with her wisdom and the wise words which Vasilisa never forgot. Go to bed, for the morning is wiser than the evening. And Vasilisa, known as Vasilisa the Beautiful here, in fact, for the wisdom of her doll, from the wisdom of her mother's wishes, her mother's blessing, became Vasilisa the Wise. I hope you enjoyed this very special story of Baba Yaga and Vasilisa the Wise, with her doll, a mother's blessing, who gave her wisdom and advice, until in other stories the doll is not named, but those words of "go to sleep, for the morning is wiser than the evening" become the words of Vasilisa. She utters them in every story. She knows them in her heart, in her intuition. She is guided from the inside rather from the outside. It is a story of facing what you are afraid of, like many, entering that hut, being invited to enter it this time rather than uttering the words yourself, being initiated into a different life, gaining wisdom through tasks, through hardship, following the internal wisdom in the pocket of your dress. May you always follow your internal wisdom, like Vasilisa learned to do. A special gift. I wish to tell you a bit more about this story, a bit more about Baba Yaga. As in many other cultures on all the continents in the world, in the Slavic lands, the goddess was portrayed as a trinity, denoted by the maiden. Also, could be thought of as the Rusauka, the mermaid that lives in sweet waters. The mother, mother moist earth, and the crone, Baba Yaga. And they are represented by the three sacred colours: white, red, and black. And some say that these three sacred colours also reflect the notions of consciousness, action, and chaos. As Baba Yaga controls nature in the tale, she has many servants: the plants, the animals, the human, the cosmic realm, air, water, wind, rain, sun, the moon. The special helpers in some stories is the three riders: the white one representing dawn, the red one the sun, and the black one the night. Whenever we encounter Baba Yaga in her little hut, where the hero or heroine has to say the magic words in order for the hut to spin to allow them to come in. Baba Yaga lies there, her legs stretched from corner to corner, her iron nose sticking into the ceiling, her breasts hanging over hooks, her feet on the threshold, her lips on the roof pillar, her arms stretched from corner to corner. The hut, filled up by Baba Yaga's body, resembles both a womb and a coffin. Both are places where transformation occurs. And Baba Yaga is all about transformation. Baba Yaga is the ancient mistress of animals and the forest, and she is guardian of the land of the dead, and her dwelling can be regarded as an initiation hut, which is what happens in the stories that we tell. I hope you enjoyed this one. And of course, I wish you a happy Halloween. Happy Samhain. Happy Day of the Dead. October is the month of Baba Yaga. And now I can see why. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoy this podcast, recommend it to a friend. You might get a lot from the story. And you can always buy me a coffee or join me on Patreon. Thank you to Aim Feathers for the music. Thank you for joining me in the Story Apothecary. Until we meet again, goodbye.